The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the dense foliage. Crimson and orange bled into the vast Brazilian sky, painting a masterpiece that seemed almost otherworldly. Crickets chirped, their song a constant rhythm in the stillness, a symphony of nature that filled the air. The air, thick and heavy, held the promise of rain, a prelude to the storms that often swept through this untamed land. This was Mato Grosso, a land where the wild things roamed and ancient legends whispered on the wind, a place of mystery and wonder. Deep in the heart of this untamed wilderness lay Fazenda Esmeralda, a small farm owned by João Silva, a man of the land. João, a man hardened by years of toil under the unforgiving sun, knew the land like the back of his hand, every tree and every shadow. But tonight, a sense of unease clung to him, a prickling at the back of his neck that he couldn't shake. Something wasn't right, and he felt it deep in his bones. The dogs, usually boisterous and full of life, whined softly beneath the porch, their instincts alerting them to an unseen danger. Their tails, normally wagging flags of greeting, were tucked between their legs, a clear sign of their fear. Even the cattle seemed restless, their low moos echoing through the night, laced with an unfamiliar fear that spread through the herd. João, his gut twisting with dread, scanned the tree line, his hand instinctively reaching for the machete that hung at his side. He knew he had to be ready for whatever was out there, lurking in the shadows. The previous morning, João had discovered one of his chickens dead. It was a sight that sent a shiver down his spine, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows of his rural home. It wasn't unusual for a predator to pick off a stray bird, but this was different. There was something unsettling about the scene, something that didn't fit the usual pattern of a wild animal attack. The chicken was completely drained of blood, its body strangely contorted, its eyes wide with a terror that chilled him to the bone. The sight was grotesque, almost as if it had been the victim of some dark ritual. The old tales, stories whispered around campfires and dismissed as folklore, flashed through his mind. He remembered the hushed voices of the elders, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows as they spoke of creatures that roamed the night, stories of the ChupaCabra, the goat-sucker, a creature of the night that preyed on livestock, leaving behind a trail of inexplicable carnage. The descriptions were vivid, almost too real to be mere legend. He had tried to convince himself it was just a wild animal, a jaguar perhaps, or a pack of feral dogs, but the evidence didn't add up. There were no tracks, no signs of a struggle that would suggest a typical predator, but the whispers in the back of his mind refused to be silenced. They grew louder with each passing hour, feeding his growing sense of unease. The stories of the Chupacabra were deeply ingrained in the fabric of his childhood, passed down through generations. They were more than just tales, they were warnings, lessons wrapped in myth. Tales of its blood-red eyes that glowed in the darkness, its razor-sharp claws, and its spine-chilling shriek that echoed through the night. These were the things that haunted his dreams as a child, and now, they seemed to be creeping into his reality. His logical mind dismissed them as mere superstition, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was lurking in the shadows. The rational part of him fought against the fear, but the primal instinct to survive was overpowering. As darkness fell, the oppressive atmosphere intensified. The familiar landscape of his home transformed into a realm of unknown terrors, each shadow a potential threat. The usual symphony of nocturnal creatures was replaced by an unnerving silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. It was as if the night itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. João found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, his senses on high alert. Every rustle, every shadow seemed to be a harbinger of doom. He felt a cold sweat prickling at his skin, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. The fear was almost tangible, a living entity that wrapped itself around him. He was a man of the land, used to the solitude and the sounds of the night, but tonight, fear was a palpable presence, clinging to him like a shroud. The darkness seemed to be closing in, and João knew that whatever was out there, it was watching him. A low growl, guttural and primal, sliced through the silence, echoing through the dense forest like a harbinger of doom. João froze, his blood turning to ice, his breath caught in his throat. The night seemed to close in around him, suffocating and oppressive. He had heard the sound of predators before, but this was different. This was a sound that carried with it an ancient, malevolent force. This was something else entirely, something that defied the natural order of the world he knew. It was a sound that spoke of an ancient, unbridled savagery, a sound that sent shivers down his spine and made his heart race with primal fear. He grabbed his lantern, the flickering flame casting long dancing shadows across the farmyard, creating an eerie play of light and dark. Gripping his machete tightly, he slowly made his way towards the source of the sound, each step heavy with dread and anticipation. The air grew colder, a damp, musky odor assaulting his nostrils, mingling with the scent of decaying leaves and earth. It was the smell of decay and fear, a smell that spoke of death itself, lingering in the air like a ghostly presence. The growl came again, closer this time, and João's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears like a drum of impending doom. It was a sound that seemed to reverberate in his bones, a sound that spoke of a power beyond his comprehension, a force of nature untamed and wild. His hand trembled as he raised his lantern, the dim light cutting through the darkness, revealing the hidden secrets of the night. There in the shadows he saw it, a figure that seemed to merge with the darkness itself, a creature unlike anything he had ever seen before, its form twisted and grotesque, eyes glowing with a malevolent light. It was hunched over the mangled carcass of one of his goats, its claws tearing at the flesh with a ferocity that made him sick to his stomach, the sound of ripping flesh filling the air. João gasped, the lantern slipping from his grasp and plunging the farmyard into darkness, the only light now the eerie glow of the creature's eyes. He was paralyzed with fear, every instinct screaming at him to run, to flee for his life, but his legs refused to move, rooted to the spot by an unseen force.